Okay, Rabbi Sai, the good news is that there is a mere 58 weeks to Purim. So, actually next year, Tafshin Ayin Dalid, if I saw correctly on the calendar, it's going to be the same as this year. There's going to be Tanis Esther on Thursday, and Sunday is going to be Purim. Sunday, Monday. So basically, I think the message is that Hashem is going to keep doing this to us until we get it straight. You know what I mean? Until we finally do it right. You know, Baruch Hashem over here in Yeshiva was very Geshmaka, uplifting Purim. And hopefully we were playing a lot of Yeshuas for each other. I know definitely it was exhausting. I'm not sure what the stage of Adel Yoda is, but I think I have a little bit of a different interpretation to it. Because when I came home Purim night, and I got so excited when I saw a bag of microwave popcorn, and it was only after I opened the bag that I realized there was a vacuum cleaner bag on the thing. Somehow they look the same, like they have the kind of same texture. I think that's a china of Adel Yada. Baruch Hashem, I realized before I began to consume the contents, shall we say. So, I tell you, it's, as you know, if you've seen here together, Purim, I don't know how people do this, these white socks that I was wearing. It's cold outside. And also, like, you have these strings, you have to tie them. I'm not quite sure exactly where you tie them, but you have to tie them to keep the socks from falling. Because the pants, I don't know why I'm getting into this now, but I just want to say that part of Adel Yada is, however you're supposed to tie them, but when you tie what's called the bendel, the string of your right foot to your left foot, and the left foot to your right foot, then you are Adel Yada, as you start walking and then you realize your mistake. Okay. So you just said, by Ma'ariv, Baruch Aleinu es Hashana Hazois. Why are we asking for the year? Fischel on Rosh Hashanah, so it would make sense, it stands to reason on Rosh Hashanah that we say Baruch Aleinu es Hashana Hazois. Why do we do that, on a day-to-day basis? Ought we not to say Baruch Aleinu es Hayoim Hazeh? Why are we talking about the entire year? You think that part of the answer is that, especially when it comes to Parnasa, is that slow down, my friend. We want instant answers. We would all love to have enough money in the bank by tomorrow morning to make sure that we can sleep ashore for the next 6 years. What the Chayvus Alvavus refers to as we want a mashkin, we want collateral from God. And we want that money in the bank. And the Rabbi Shem says that it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work on a day-to-day basis. That Baruch Aleinu is Hashana Azais. Hashana Azais is a kind of acknowledgement to the Rabbi Shalom. I don't expect my davening to be a soda machine. That I put in the Baruch Aleinu and boom, out comes the money. But as Hashana Azais, over the course of the year, the ups and downs that I go through in the course of the day, give me the courage to ride them through. I'm going to say the story that this person is told to go to the Kaisel 40 days to be mispalel for a good shidduch for his daughter. So he goes to the Kaisel and he's there for 40 days. And then at the end of the 40 days, someone comes over to him. It was a rich Texan who came by, and he looks at him and says, "I see you're crying. I see the tears in your eyes. It's so sincere." And he takes out his checkbook and he tells me, "How much do you need?" Another guy sees this and he's like, "Hey, So he starts his 40 days. And it's the last day, it's the 40th day, and he's waiting, for that tap on the back, and he's like davening, it's already day number 40, let's tutzach, come on God, let's go. And all of a sudden, there it is, a tap on the back, and he turns around, and he sees another Shalayim Dika Yidl who says, Masas Kala, maybe you have something for me. He says, that wasn't the tap I was waiting for. The davening is it's not an instant thing. And that's why we say, Baruch Aleinu es Hashana Hazois. That the Rabbi Shalom, I know that the issue of money is not an instant answers, but guide me in the right direction. On any given day, there are many uncertainties and there are many unknowns. At the end of the year, we look back and we slowly begin to understand how HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts things into perspective. And you really don't know, until you have all the 4 quarters, you really don't know if the business is doing good or not. Because we live in a world where ups really mean downs sometimes, and downs means up. And there has to be, in our request for Parnasa, a certain sense of bittul. Rabbi Shalom, I put in my request, and my life is in your hands. They say, washing machines are mesugel to break between Purim and Pesach. There's the washing machine malach that comes down and wreaks havoc. When you call the washing machine repair guy, and he says he'll be here in 2 days, he starts screaming 2 days. And one of my kids once said, why don't you call him next time 2 days before it breaks? So this way he'll come right away. Good point. It does break at the same time every year. Why not? It part of where we say Baruch Aleinu as Hashanah Azais is a kind of acknowledgement that the Rabbi Shalom, I know I'm not going to have the picture till the end of the year, but get me through what this day represents in the course of the year. And when we take into account that Hashem's days is 1,000 years, we take into account that the Kadosh Baruch Hu's days are 1,000 years, so we'll never have the wide angle look of understanding how things go up and things down that the Rebbeinu Shalom has. So somebody once told me a shtickle eitzah, shtickle solution, that in a time of crisis, he says, make a little calendar for yourself. This is what this person said to me, and I think that it holds water, shall we say. Don't even buy a calendar, or don't even take one of the many calendars that you get Rosh Hashanah time. He says, take a lined piece of paper and draw, 7, and make a calendar of the entire year. And look at it. And say, this calendar knows what nobody else in the world knows. Only one Boirei Olam knows where the year is going. And when you fall into a pressure, what's going to be, what's going to happen, the calendar knows what's going to happen. Look at the calendar and say, the Rebbeinu Shalom, he's in charge of this calendar. Take the pressure off yourself. They say, stress management people say you should write things down. Write down a to-do list. And takes the pressure off your mind and puts it on the paper. I do it all the time. Like, the stress is for me and I can't find the list afterwards. Or then somebody else finds a list and say, I can't believe you didn't do this yet, But I start writing in code. But so by looking at a calendar, you're saying, this is my life is in your hands, and that's it. You know what the answer is. Let me do what I have to do today. And Baruch Aleinu as Hashanah Azais, at the end of the year, Rabbi Shalom, you know how to work it all out. You know how to put it into perspective. That you hear Kriyas Torah tomorrow, Parshas Kisisa, or on Shabbos, you say, listen, there are many unanswered questions in my life. I beg of you, Hashem, by next year, Parshas Kisisa should be resolved. Borrow from the future. How can I borrow from the future? Now's not the future. Well, that's one of the inyanim that in Kriya Shema we say by Hashem, you have to have in mind, Hashem was, is, and will be. For me, I don't know what the future is, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu does know the future. So connect yourself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Yosef HaTzadik says to the brothers, V'ata, not to Yatsu. And now what are you depressed about? V'ata, if you live in the Ata, your job is the Ata. Leave the future to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the present. Not to Yatsu. What are you depressed about? What happened, happened. What's going to happen is going to happen. Let the Rabbeinu Shalom complete the equation. Deal with today. I'll tell you, before the Purim Suda, I kind of had this minute. We tried to go visit. So we went up to, we didn't go to Manhattan this year, but I took my family, went up to the nursing home. And I was looking for one particular person, just to, give a Freilich and Purim to. We mentioned from Purim, from the Nidvan Rabbi, he said before he was Nifter, that the one thing he regrets in his lifetime is that he didn't make enough Yidden smile on Purim. You want to think about how high that level is and how great the Madrega is. So I said, let's go to a nursing home. We'll go to a nursing home. We'll look around a little bit and we'll see what's going on there. We'll see what's happening. And I'm looking for this particular patient that I was looking for, a very friend of mine. And we pass a room. And as we're passing the room, there's an old man. He looks like he's striped shirt. He looks ancient. I mean, he looks like he's been there, mamish, way, way back. Trying to think. George Washington times, Civil War, and I'll tell you more. He looks like he was there even from before they started the construction on the Brooklyn Bridge. You know what I mean? I don't know when that was. That was like the construction on the FDR Drive, right? So, right? Who would name a president after a highway that's under perpetual construction? I don't know, but anyway. So this, and he didn't look, quite frankly, from the distance, he didn't look like he knew what was going on. He didn't look like he knew what was happening. But as we walked by, I thought, let me go over and say Freilich and Purim to him. I mean, he doesn't know what's going on anyway. Let me go. Listen, I'll do mine. So I'm there with my son, and we walk over to him, and he's like, looks like half here, half there, and he's laying back, and his mouth is like a jar, and he's saying, and no response. We start walking away, and then there's like a grunt, and I thought he like motioned with his finger. So we turned around, we come back, and he goes, he had a very slurred and very difficult speech, and he really struggled on it. But I thought that I heard him say the word bracha. So I said, yeah, bracha, the Eibusha should help. You should have menuchas hanefesh, refuah, Yeshua. And he goes, like, what did I do wrong, you know? They're usually pretty good with brachas. They don't necessarily work, but at least verbalize them. And again he goes, bracha. So I said, Hashem should help. You should have a refuah. You should be all well. I'm like, what? And then all of a sudden he looks at me like, are you slow or something? And he goes like this. Bracha. I don't need your bracha, all right? You know what I mean? I wonder if you want a bracha from me. I said, oh, okay, got it. So I said, I wasn't even thinking that way. I'm the big cowboy here on Purim, going to save Klal Yisrael. And I didn't think, I need a bracha from him. Oh, yeah, right, good point. So he says to me, bracha, as if to say, what do you want a bracha for? So I said, refuah, menuchas hanefesh, peace of mind, tranquility. He looks at me and goes, Parnasa you don't need. He doesn't need Parnasa. Money you don't need, right? Like as if it doesn't pass you to ask for money. I said, oh boy, one thing, this guy is sharp. Whoa. I said, Parnasa? So I said, yeah, Parnasa also. Parnasa, I'll throw in Parnasa on the same thing. So he tells me like this, again, with very difficult speech, but he gets the words out. He says, if you don't have Parnasa, you don't have menuchas hanefesh. Okay. So, but he goes, if you have too much Parnasa, you also don't have menuchas hanefesh. I said, I thought he's smart. And I realized how smart he is. He says, so I give you a bracha, you should have the right amount of Parnasa. So says this man. You know what I mean? Do we know what the right amount of Parnasa is? Do we know the difference between too much and too little? Do we know the difference of Yesh Oisher Shomer L'Bolov L'Ra'asai, where money drives a person down, where it brings him up? So we say, Es Hashana Hazais. We thank Hashem for the year. I don't know what today is. I thank Hashem for the year. Es Hashana Hazais Kalmine Seviyasa L'Toiva. He did say an interesting story, which I tried to get out of him. I got out of him that he was in some type of an accident many years ago, and he totally lost his speech. So I tried to say to him, it's a difficult, struggling speech, but he can't talk. So he says, and I think this is the story that he said, that he went, as a bacher, his father took him to the Satmar Rebbe, Chaim Levracha, and the Rebbe said, what's the matter with him? He said, he can't talk. So he came to a bracha from the Rebbe, so the Rebbe said, let him give me a bracha. And that he managed to gurgle something out of his mouth, and since then he recovered part of his speech. So I guess that we sometimes have to know when to give brachas and when to take brachas, and if you confuse the two, it's not good. But you have to have the seichel to be able to do both. It says, "Im chachma ein kan." If there's no wisdom, zikna yeshkan. Right? What does that mean? Chachma has an ability of assessing a situation for what it is. Zikna has a panoramic view. You see much more. I'm going to use something which someone told me, which I have no idea if I'm pronouncing it right. But if there's a camera with a 1.8 gigapixel, am I talking Hungarian or Korean here? Did I pronounce that right? Anyone into camera? Where's Yeshua? Anyone into camera? Moshe, right? All right. Anyway, that is used on the spy planes. What are they called? The spy planes. That's the unmanned the drones, right? Right. They're used. They can take pictures 10 square miles in one shot. 10 square miles. Okay? And they can be focused on something which is even 6 inches big, and they can do it from 20 feet in the air. And you think about this, it's mind-boggling. So when they said about those Lubavitcher Hasidim that before Yom Kippur they took a helicopter and they stuck a chicken outside the window and flew around Eretz Yisrael, so everyone should be Yotzei Kaparis. It's not so unheard of. If you understand, there must be some to it. So I said, I don't know what a 1.8 gigapixel is, but at 10 square miles, can you imagine if your eyes can see 10 square miles in one shot? and not at the expense of every little thing. You can see something with 6 inches in diameter, from 20 feet, 20,000 feet up in the air, something like that. I'll explain to you what I saw in a given area. But do I have any idea? Do I have a complete picture compared to a lens that sees 10 square miles and from 20,000 feet in the air? So Kal V'Chomer Ben Benoishel Kal V'Chomer Kal V'Yachol, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees from the beginning of the world to the end of the world and knows how our neshama was created and why we're down here and where we're going. Do we have the whole picture, or only HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the whole picture? And only the Rabbi Shalom has it. Which is one of the reasons I like my car, because it has all these years. It has a bigger picture of the world, so to speak. So the Ata Mati Atsu. The word Ata, meaning now, is spelled with an ayin. Ata, meaning you, is spelled with an aleph. Now there's a rule that an ayin and an aleph are mischalefes. It changes. You can interchange one for another. So Ata, we are sometimes stuck in the Ata. The Ata can be very frightening. The Ata can be very confusing. The Ata can be very challenging. Ata, I don't know where to go. I'm in a situation in life I have to make a decision. I don't know what decision to make. There are stress factors pointing at me from all different directions. And the answer is to take the ayin and switch it to the aleph and say Ata. But you, Hashem, you do know. You do have the panoramic view of the entire universe because you created the universe. So you're mevatel your Ata to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ata, which is really what we're doing every time we daven Shmon Esrei and we say Baruch Ata Hashem. We're saying, Rabbeinu Shalom, my Ata is so limited. I only know what hurts me now. I only know my pain at this given moment. But Ata, you have that panoramic view of the entire universe from beginning to end. So therefore, I take my Ata and I'm mevatel it to your Ata. Someone told me that there's a company that they have a whole thing that it's called a share desk or a share an hour. In other words, they have this whole system of experts throughout the world that are in a given place and they're not working at this present time, where companies can say, we're giving you a consultant for an hour. And everyone makes money on it. Or let's say a guy is coming to a certain city to do business. He needs a desk for an hour. He needs a desk, he needs a computer, he needs a thing. So they make these shiduchim.
Blue box.
One guy is, what's it called?
It's called a blue box.
Blue box, okay. So, like the black box that crashes, and no. Blue
buildings,
box.
they have buildings in the city. They're blue boxes.
Okay, so those are set for people to rent an hour. But this is where we are taking an existing office, where this guy's an accountant, he has an office in Philadelphia, and the other guy is he's an engineer, and he has an office in Oklahoma, and the two happen to be in two different places, and each need an hour, and they give each other their offices for that particular hour. And the company makes 15%. You understand, on whatever is, I don't know exactly 15% of what. But the truth is, whenever you call a company, you always get this, hi, you know what you call a bank, someone at a bank or someone at an insurance company? Hi, I'm not at my desk right now. You can leave a message on my voicemail. Hi, I'm not at my desk now. So I don't know why they need desks at all, because they're really never at their desks. You know what I mean? You can imagine an airplane pilot. Hi, I'm not at my... The emergency is a storm. I'm not at the controls right now, but you can leave a message on my voicemail. Your plane is crashed, right? Not at my desk. I know where a lot of people are not at their desks. So if you can figure out how to put one desk... What I mean to say is, if you have this type of networking, where you have companies that are doing very well, I understand, making so many millions by saying, you have something, you have a deficiency, you have a surplus, put it together. The Rebbeinu Shalom does this to us and doesn't charge us a commission. Not only does the Kadosh Baruch Hu not charge us a commission, but in the course of the people we have to deal with, from our close family to people that we meet at random, or someone sitting next to you in shul, all of this is a Kadosh Baruch Hu saying, share desks. So if someone knocks on your door and needs a taiva from you, should I give up my time to him? You're not giving up nothing. This is, are you reading the signals? And that's why after the bracha of Baruch Aleinu, what do we have? The Kav Shayfa Gada. And we have Kibbutz Galiyos. Because if you really want to understand the bracha of Parnasa, you have to believe that a Kadosh Baruch Hu has a whole system that goes from Sheishes and Bereshis until Mashiach, of how we have to share things with each other. So I read someplace a report, they have the most stressful jobs as opposed to the most relaxing jobs. The most stressful jobs, I was surprised to see 8th grade Rabbi was not on the list. But the most stressful jobs, they said, was a soldier on the front lines. The next was the general. The general is not as stressful as the guy on the private up on front. Because the general has the officers' clubs where we can go in and do Adalayada several times throughout the year. The soldier doesn't always have that. He says the next stressful job in going in order is a fireman. Remember when you were little, you wanted to be a fireman when you grow up? I know a guy, his shver, or someone who eventually became a shver, like met him. In my circle, sometimes a father-in-law meets the boy before he lets you see his daughter. So this guy met him, and this father-in-law was like very nervous. And he says to the boy, like, he says, so what do you want to be when you grow up? He's like, what? When I grow up? So he told him a fireman, okay? The guy came back, told the Schachter, I don't know. He says he wants to be a fireman, He says, what did you ask him? Ask him what he wants to be when he grows up. He says, he answers very good, What are you asking him, Shiloh? It's a kid's dream. So fireman is a pretty stressful job, obviously. The next stressful job on the list of jobs that are stressful is a pilot. If you ask me, I think being a passenger is much more stressful. Shoes on, shoes off, like you walk in there and you have the whole Homeland Security and the TSA and like 60 agents jump on you. Aha! We got you! Hands up! Peanut butter! We found a peanut butter sandwich in your bag! I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Talk about stress, the pilot is under stress. The next stressful thing is heads of public relations firms. I guess you have to come up with the next lie very quickly, and that's not so easy. Senior vice presidents are extremely stressful, and corporate CEOs of corporations, extremely stressful, very stressful. You know what it means if you swing on the golf club in Miami and you miss? You know what I mean? You have to carry all that stuff, and you don't have the right guy schlepping it, and sometimes on your corporate jet there's a lot of turbulence. It's a very stressful job. Next stressful is newspaper photographers, which is extremely stressful, and then taxi drivers. That's also on the list of stressful drivers. That didn't say in America or in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, the taxi drivers are not under stress. The rest of the population is under stress. You don't like the way I drive? Get off the sidewalk. Right? Then they also have the list of the most relaxing jobs. The least stressful jobs. Here's the list of the least stressful jobs. Number one on the list, guess. Anyone want to guess? Least stressful job.
8th grade Rabbi.
Yeah, 8th grade Rabbi, right. Is a college professor. Yes. College professor, the least stressful job. Okay? It's very, very easy to tell other people what to do. College professor. I remember once, I never took a college course, but I once was bringing my kid for speech therapy in a certain college. I remember this guy would march out every day. He was wearing his pants was one color, his jacket was this. It goes back, he was a remnant of the 60s. Big patches over here. He had like this ponytail all the way down. They're walking. He looked a little, begliefen, a little bit adalayada, looked under a lot of stress. He looked like, yes, college professor. Next on the list of relaxed jobs, a tailor. Tailor is supposed to be very relaxed. I guess it depends who you're tailoring for, And it comes in and says, make me a suit to make me look thin. I don't know, right? It says I'm a tailor, not a magician. Hello? A little stress over there. Famous story about the Rebbe of Melech. There was a tailor that was doing very, very well. And people were coming from all over. And finally the princes and the nobles started using him. And he was extremely... They were really doing way up there. And once, the son-in-law of the king ordered a coat for him, and he was like on top of the world. He says, "This is it." And he made him this big red coat with the pom-poms that hang over here. When it was all done, he marches right in, and he looks down, and his wife, starts seeing it and says, "This is terrible. This is disgusting. It's horrible. How dare you do this for the king?" And he starts, once his wife said it was terrible, of course, he said it was terrible, which was much easier, much safer than saying she's terrible, which is really what he wanted to say. But Lemaisa, the guy walks away, it's a brach and it's a shmetet, and now his whole parnasa and everyone takes away their orders from him, and he runs to the Rebbe Melech. He said, "What did I do wrong? What happened?" The Rebbe Melech said, "Listen, he gave you 30 days to redo it. So how should I make my pattern different? Is this what you should do, okay?" He said, "Take the very same coat, undo all the stitches, and re-sew it. Exactly the way you did it." Yeah, but do it as soon as I tell you. So he had a Munas Chacham, he comes back and they tell him, "This is a coat. This is beautiful. This is gorgeous." So he said, why? What happened over here? So he told him, you are king of the world, right? There's no greater tailor than I am. I'm going next is the king. I am all the way on top. He said, Chen and Gaiva are steers, are contradictions. For someone to appreciate something, for something to have a charm, and being conceited don't go together. Once you opened it up, and by every single stitch you said, Rabbi Shalom, I need you, all of a sudden you generated Chen. Generated a Chen. Next on the list of things that are relaxing, a medical records clerk. Why is that relaxing? I guess, Yemen Suris is, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this, I don't have that, That's next on the list of things that are relaxing, a jewelry designer. Don't ask me why. Next of things that are relaxing, and it's the people that do audiology tests. Beats me, right? It's like, it's very easy. Because, people that, don't think that's what you do. That's what you do. Okay, this was just by sheer hashgacha pratis here. You look very relaxed. No, look, that's what it says. Now, I could just imagine. See, a Rabbi got to go, Chaim, sit down. Chaim, get off that window. Chaim, get off the bookcase and sit down. Put down that pizza. You cannot have a pizza in middle class. Sit down. Put down. No screaming at the kids. A policy in the school, no screaming. Chaim, please, you cannot have a pizza in middle class. Chaim, do you hear? You don't hear? When you give someone a test, a hearing test, what is it? Do you hear? No. Okay, you don't hear. Tell me, which is simpler? Another guy that came to the Rabbi, he said he doesn't know what to do. He's very scared. He thinks his wife is losing her hearing. It's a big problem. So how do you know? She answers me. I think she only answers me when I talk to her, so she reads my lips. So what should I do? How do I get her help? He says, first you have to ascertain whether indeed it's a problem. So he said, listen, what you should do is, at one point, when your mom is to her back, ask her a question to see if she doesn't answer you, because then she doesn't know you're talking to her. So at one point she's standing there by the kitchen, and he walks up, his mom is facing her, he goes, Chana, what's for supper tonight? She doesn't answer. He says, Chana, what's for supper tonight? This proves it. He says it louder. Chana, what's for supper tonight? Finally, that's it. He goes, she says, one more time, and I realize, I have a problem. He calls out, he goes, Chana, what's for supper tonight? She turns and says, I told you 10 times, chicken, don't you understand that? She turns around, and so audiology, I guess that's one of the relaxing things, because you just decide. The guy came in to buy a hearing aid, and he said, I don't know, well, again, I didn't plan this. This is hashgacha, you see? Why should you know you're coming? So, he says, what's the cheapest one? He says, the cheapest one's $1.29. He says, what is it? He says, here's just a piece of plastic. It's the outer thing that goes on the ear, that's all. He goes, how does it help? He says, when people see it, they talk louder to you. That's how it works, okay? Had an old yid in my shul. He showed me on his hearing aid. The volume goes up, the volume goes down. He says, I come home, she comes over to me, where were you? It's very good, he says. It worked out, I can leave the place, I turn it on, That's how it goes. I'll tell you, I once saw something that really wasn't nice. I was sitting outside in a lobby someplace, and I see this guy picks up the phone, and he's just sitting there schmoozing, and he goes, his wife saying, where are you? He goes, no, Oh, you will davening? No, I'm sorry, you mean to call davening? No, we call back up davening, and he just continues schmoozing. So, someone said you shouldn't say that publicly, you're making shalom bayis problems. This way, every time a wife's going to call her husband, she's going to go, she's going to say, or, I said, no, you shouldn't pick up your phone during davening, period. Someone said that they put out a thing that the worst, biggest waste of money in corporate America, the biggest waste of money is meetings. Right? The guy tells you, I'm in a meeting. I can't talk, I'm in a meeting. I'm in a meeting. He's in a meeting with his Danish and coffee machine. He's in a meeting. That's why I'm there. The Chavetz Chaim once came to a very big meeting in a certain town, a big asifa. He rarely came, but when he came, of course, he took on the whole thing. So they dealt with the crisis at hand, and afterwards they told the Chavetz Chaim that they have to vote for a Rosh Hakol here in this town. It's always very, shtickle tough. Maybe you can come and join us by this meeting. We'd love to hear your opinion. He goes, in those kinds of meetings, there's going to be Lashon Hara and Rechilas. I don't want anything to do with it. So they said, but Rabbi, can you please? Sorry. He said, but I must believe, so one of them said respectfully, if I can ask the Rebbe, it must be that in Radin also there are some times of meetings then. So what does the Rebbe do then? He goes, that's why I came to this meeting now. Because right now there's a meeting about who to pick for the Rosh HaKol. Right? I don't want to be there. Okay. We have one more on the list. I think this is the last one on the list of things that have less stress. Dietitian. Right? It's very little stress to tell somebody else to eat 3 ounces of cottage cheese and 2 tomatoes. That's very little stress. I remember I went with a Yid. I was in camp many years ago. This Yid was like, he had some chest pains, went to the doctor, then we went to a nutritionist. He said to him, Rabbi, he goes, he says, he gives him 6 ounces of cottage cheese. He writes it down, and I'm running, and 4 tomatoes, and 2 breads, I'm translating. He goes, okay, like, ich habe es nehmen, aber was esse ich? He says, I'll take this, but what do I eat? I'm willing to do it, but tell me what I'm going to eat afterwards. So, dietitian is very stressful. In other words, it works back and forth. In other words, the least stressful the job is, the more stress it is on the person who needs it. In other words, the pilot may be a lot of stress and the passenger is relaxing. But the other way around, like the medical research clerk, right, is under no stress. That's because the guy is saying, I need the information, now my insurance company's waiting. Calm down, we'll get to your case in a couple of minutes, you know what I mean? You realize all these jobs that have least stress, the stress is on the other guy. The ones that have more stress, right, we're sitting here, enjoying ourselves, and the soldiers out there in Afghanistan that are risking their lives. So it always goes back and forth. The truth is, I was surprised that there were some things not on the list. Like, for example, working in a matzah bakery. Right? They're pretty calm, no? Goes on over there. Screaming. I remember once I took my kids someplace, and we were in yeshiva. They were baking matzahs. They're so used to it. The kneita, matzah this, and they were saying, and these guys it was very good baking. They were going, matzahs in the oven, let's go, roller fins, what? He goes, Tati, we can't eat these matzahs. I said, why not? He says, they baked it in English, he said, different. So Rabbi Salantu, when they asked him what chumrah should you do about it, Father used to share this with me, what chumrah would you like for the matzahs? Tana Rishain, only 2 minutes, we changed the paper every second, and there was paper then, so Rabbi Salantu said, I want to be makban on the deraisa. Most of the things aren't deraisa. So which deraisa? He said, Kol almona b'yasayim lo yisa'anun. He said, don't drive the widows that are working there, calm down a little bit. Take it easy a little bit. They say, I think we do this story once a year, that somebody once went over to the brisker Rav. The brisk came with all the chumras on the matzahs and so on, and this guy tells the brisker Rav, out of all people, he tells the brisker Rav this story, that there once was a Rebbe who had chumras the entire year with his matzahs. He, with the wheat and with everything, the whole year was busy with everything. Till he came to cook bake those 3 matzahs was like a whole year of work. And as he walked out, he saw Stam a Pasha the Yid said, I beg of you, I should have kosher matzahs. So the Rebbe said, you know what, you take mine, I'll take yours. You see how the koyach of tefillah is. So what did the brisker Rav say? He said, you see how that Yid's tefillahs were answered, because he got the Rebbe's matzahs, right? I don't know what the Rebbe got, but Adrab, you see the koyach of tefillah, you see how his Yid was answered. Okay, so Lamaisa, all this talk about stress, there is no button to press that removes stress from our life. Because a person may not have stress at work, but he has stress at home. The bottom line is, there's bani chayim zayne. And one person has shalom bayis issues, another person has health issues, another person has neighbor issues, another person has shriger issues, another person has work issues. There is a certain amount of stress you're going to have in the course of your life. And no one is going to suffer one tiny mashahu more than he is supposed to. There's a certain amount of menuchas and nefesh we are going to have in our life. So we ask Akasha, well, if that's already predestined, there's a certain amount of agmas nefesh I'm going to have and a certain amount of menuchas and nefesh, so what's my point of davening then? And the answer is that the agmas nefesh is to lead us to a point in bittul, a point of saying, we have to keep our minds down here in this world, to reach our tafkid. Through tefillah, you can reach that same nekuda without the agmas nefesh. Through the bittul and tefillah, saying, I don't need the agmas nefesh to remind me that I'm not in control of my life. And that's basically how we're getting there. So that's why the bracha of Baruch Aleinu comes right before Tekah b'Shofar Gadol L'Chei V'Seinu. So we're saying that Rebbeinu Shalom, I know that there are certain amount of stresses in this life that have to do with who you're sitting next to in shul, or you're not sitting next to a shul. It has to do with shatchonim. It has to do with parnasa. It has to do with real estate agents. It has to do with customers. It has to do with your boss. It has to do with everything that the hashgacha puts you together. But if you're maimen b'yamunah shalema, that the Rabbi Shalom puts everyone together, and you ask Hashem, Baruch Aleinu as Hashana Azais, let me do my job, to give what I'm supposed to give, and take what I'm supposed to take, then everything goes into place. And somebody once said, his shul, he can't get out per morning. 1,000 collectors. Every second, he can't take it. It takes him 2 hours to get out of shul. So he said, you know what I do? I have an idea. I'm out in a second. I said, well, you have a trap door by your seat. How do you get out in a second? He goes, no. I decided that the best defense is a good offense. Take out a few dollars and I start collecting. Then Kriyas Yamsa. Everyone walks away, so I make it right out. I make it right out of the shul. But he may have missed what Purim is all about. Because Purim is either way. It's either knowing when you have to give, and it's sometimes knowing when you have to take, which is sometimes even more difficult, but it requires a greater emunah in hashgacha. So someone told me the story that his father was drafted in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War, and people were not all that excited about going. So he came with a friend. Each one was trying to get out for medical reasons. He was trying to get out because he was terribly underweight, and his friend is trying to get out for the reverse reason that he was overweight. So I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was somewhere between 100 and 300 pounds you're in. So you had to be under 100 or over 300 to get out, something like that. So he said his father weighed in at like 99, 100. You notice when you get on the scale, the needle goes back and forth. You're like, where is it going to stop? Where is it going to stop? Oh, not looking right. And the other guy weighed in also at like 299, 300. So they were told by the medical, wherever the examiner was, they should come back in 3 months. So he says, you know what was going on in those 3 months? Is my father was fasting for 3 months. And this guy could not stop eating for 3 months because he had to guarantee that he'll go below the 99, and he had to guarantee he'll be over the 300. So that's hashgacha. That is the hashgacha in the course of our lives. He just told me that his father loved cinnamon buns. He wouldn't dare eat a cinnamon buns for 3 months. Every time he passed the bakery, he was like, And finally, at the end of the 3 months, and he went there and he was down to 95 pounds, he ran to the bakery, bought that cinnamon bun. He said, there's no such a pusik of mine. This is not where my, I bit into it. It wasn't worth it. Like most taivas, the cheshik and shuka to it is much greater than the taiva itself. So part of Baruch Aleinu L'Sashonu Azais is to know when to give and to know when to take. And that is definitely not a very easy thing to do. Now one of the inyanim, one of the schools for Parasha and schools for Simchas HaChaim is to let Hashem know, you don't have to teach me the hard way, that I'm being mevatel myself to you. And that every person, every day in his life, should do something that represents an act of bittul. So sit down to learn every day, 10 minutes. Learn your two mishnayos, say your tillim, learn your daf yomi, learn your amid yomi. Learn with someone else. There's an organization now, people learn with older people. That's the last thing I have time for. But the last thing you have time for, do. Because it's your way of saying to Hashem, things are going to happen in my life that's the last thing I want to do. Instead of you doing it, let me do it. Okay? Let me show you that I'm making the ata connection. So the pasuk says, "Vayiten el Moshe kechaloisoi ledaber itoi." In Zok the pasuk that when he finished speaking to him at Har Sinai, but Rashi tells us there's no vav there. So kechalosoi can also be a kala, that the Torah was given to Moshe Rabbeinu as a matana, like a kala to a chasen, because it was impossible to learn everything in these 40 days. And the Chazal tell us that Moshe Rabbeinu hayaloimid v'shacheach, he learned and he forgot, and it looked like he's going to flunk the course. And at the end of the 40 days, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him everything as a present. Zok the Al Shech HaKadosh. What was Moshe Rabbeinu forgetting? He wasn't forgetting the actual material. But as Moshe Rabbeinu was listening, he said, how am I going to give this over to Klal Yisrael? He said, this is too much. How can I give this over to Klal Yisrael? And there is where, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu made him forget. He said, I'm forgetting myself what's going on. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, yes, as you forget and you struggle through it, Klal Yisrael will go through the same thing. There was one of the great Rabbanim in the last century was Rav, it was called Rav Abishal Frankfurter. Rav of Frankfurt. There was a famous story with a Kli Get. He was one of the major players, so to speak, when the big Paiskim. Now Rav Abishal used to sign all of his papers, Avram Hu Avram. That's how he signed off. and they asked him why. He never really said why, but the Chiddushei Arim had a Talmud who was struggling in his learning, and the Chiddushei Arim told him, don't give up. And once he told him the story of this Avram hu Avram, his Abishal, which is a nickname for Avram, when he was a little boy, nothing went into his head. The Imamish was doing pre-1A 15th time already, it wasn't going. And not a piece of Gemara, not a piece of Chumash, nothing went into his head. So when those brothers were big Talmidei Chachamim, learned them big guns. Came time to marry him off, so they took him off to some small village, and they found a guy that, like they say, was not the brightest bulb in the box, and they said, you're going to marry his daughter, and So the guy said, in this little town we have a minig. Oh no, he has to say a drasha, we're dead. What's the minig? He goes, in this little thing, the story, the guy gets a chassan, he's looking for a chassan, and he starts verhering him, and he sees Satagnish, so right away he starts verhering him, and he can say over shtickle Torah. He's like, and the father Schachter whispers into his ear, he says, listen, I'll pay for the whole wedding, okay? Okay, he says, just tell me a little Gemara, can you read some Gemara to me? And the guy's like, listen, I'll pay for all the clothes, your wife and kids, to the wedding. Alright, he goes, how's about a pair of Mishnayos? The guy's like, listen, I'll buy them a house, okay? He says, okay, a Pasik Chumash, brand new car, okay, new lease, every 3 years. He goes, okay, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. And afterwards, the father, the Kala walks out, he's so tzibroch and he's crying. Someone says, you sold your daughter for money, that's what you're crying. That's not why I'm crying. So why are you crying? Because I should have heard him house base, I would have got houses for all my kids also. Why did I stop there, Alright, so this guy goes, his Abishal, nothing. He says, we have a minig in this town. He goes, what's the minig in this town? He goes, the minig in this town is that the chassan, he goes, oh no, hope the chassan doesn't give a drasha. The minig in this town is that the chassan benches Baal Peh. Benches Baal Peh. I think it's supposed to bench Baal Peh. Who is he talking to here? He goes, okay, they call an Abishal, and they tell him, okay, you're going to be benching Baal Peh. He goes, no. I will. And he had a bunch of brothers. They were all big Go'inim Talmidei Chachamim, and they broke up. Each one was going to teach him a different bracha. One brother was in charge of Hazanas HaKoil, the other was in charge of Noidei Lecha, and the one was in charge, and they hacked away at the poor guy. It's like this Bar kid, learning for his pshatel, and finally comes the big day, the Ofruf, they travel to the town, and Friday night they want to do a dress rehearsal, and they tell Abishal, okay, start. He goes, Baruch Ata, stage fright, he forgets everything. And the brother was so angry at him, he goes, how could you klutz? He shakes him and slaps him across the face, I'm going to get together and go and put into you. And Abishal runs out. And of course he has Charota, the second he does it, he runs after him, he says, come back, he runs into the woods. And Abishal is in the woods, and he is crying his head off. And he says, Rabbi Shalom, you wanted to give me a shvacha head, this is how I have to learn, fine, this is how I'll learn. But why did you have to put me into such a family, to embarrass them? And suddenly he feels a hand on his shoulder, he turns around, and there's someone there in a white beard, or whatever Leoyan of his beard is, and he says to him, Abishal, your tefillas have answered, Psach Picha v'yirienach. And he comes home, and the story goes, he started opening up Svarim like a person that also started to see. He couldn't believe it. Kasha Teretz, it made sense. He was like going out of his mind. Kasha Teretz. He was going out of his mind. He was so happy. He was like the happiest person in the world. But he decided he's keeping it from his brothers. And Lamaisa, the next day, they came to bench. So of course, when you say the story to the kids, they start benching. See, Baruch Ata Hashem. But he probably didn't do that. And benching, he could have told you benching with all the Rishonim and the Achrayim. The next day, Shabbos morning, the family goes home. He's still in shul, and he walks by the window, and someone comes over to him and says, he sees the face again in the window, and he says to him, Sach Picha v'yirenech, you can't keep it to yourself. So he gets up on the beam and he starts darshaning, and everyone stands around there. And meanwhile, the Abishal's father says, where's Abishal? The brothers go to look for him. They come to the shul. They go, what? They run back and they're saying, where's Abishal? He says he's darshaning. He said, he's darshaning. Get him off that beam. What's he darshaning? 10 steps out to do benching, get him off there. And he goes running and he hears him talking unbelievable, beautiful words of Torah, and he puts it down in such a way that everyone understands that it's so zis, it's so beautiful, it's so geschmack. And the father, goes over to him afterwards and says, listen, it's still the offer. We don't have to do the shidduch now. Now that you're, now we can get you. He says, no. He's not going to embarrass the Bas Yisrael. And Lamaisa, he always signed off on his tshuvos, Avram hu Avram, because he felt that he got to a certain point and his life changed. He was always a tremendous onav, and a tremendous masmid. And they say, Erev Pesach, it's hard to find a place to learn. In the Besmedish, the shamus goes, hey, Rabbi, I got to put the chairs on the, I got to put the chairs on top of the table. Uncle Yaakov, come, sit down. Come. Here you are. It's all yours. So, Erev Pesach, he doesn't have where to live, doesn't have where to sit down. So, and he comes home, his wife says, we got to clean, we got to this. The next room is a door. All right, so where does he go? The only place he finds a place to learn is in the mikveh. Not in the mikveh, but like the outside room of the mikveh. So he's sitting, okay?
No.
So he's sitting by the outside room, I'm sorry. So he's sitting by the outside room of the mikveh. And this rich guy walks in, and who's this guy, Erev Pesach? So he looks a little suspicious. He's sitting with a Gemara. He hangs up his silver chain and his top hat. He walks in, and he's sitting and learning. And some other guy comes by, grabs the stick, and runs off with it. He comes out, he goes, got it! Give me back my stick! He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I take your stick. I mean, people come running. Anyway, finally, I'll get it back. I'll take you to the Rav. You can't take me to the Rav because, well, never mind. It says the next day it's the Shabbos HaGadol Drasha, and all the London from all over come to hear his Drasha, and he's trying to push himself through. And finally, when he gets to, he can't believe it. I accused him. He starts running toward him, and when he sees him running toward him, so what does Rabbi Shul say to him? He looks and coming toward him. He says, "I promise you, I wasn't the one. I didn't take your stick." It didn't occur to him he's coming to ask me. So they say that before he was nifter, so his brother, they gave him the smack. They were old people already. Came over to him. He burst into tears. He said, I never asked you mechila for that smack. And he took his brothers by his shoulder. He said, you want to ask me mechila? He said, if not for that smack, I would have been it would still be chazering benching Balpena. Now, you have to take this a step further. It's true. I'm not suggesting this is the answer for anyone that has a shvache head. But it's not the smack that did it. It's his reaction to the smack. Now, he could have reacted by punching his brother in the face. You understand that? Instead, he ran into the woods and said, look how much stress they're in that he had to do this. Rabbi Shalom, if not for my sake, do you understand how he used this moment? I'll tell you an interesting thing. That I once was speaking, this is true, in a federal prison. Okay? It was a maximum security prison. It was like a little get-together on Hanukkah. And I was there, and I decided I was going to say this story. And all sorts of people were coming to the story, not necessarily. There's one guy walked in, he had this white hair, sat down, and he told me who he was. He was from the big Italian mafia people. He had, I don't want to say names, but it was he had a first name, the something, last name, you know what I mean? One of those. And I said, Simonish get pink this, you know what I mean? And he's sitting right in front. And I said, should I change the thing? I said, no, I'm going, listen, this is what I prepared, on God puts things together here. When I got to that point that somebody tapped him on the shoulder in the woods and said, he got up and said, give me a break, and he walked out. So I said, I think that there was a big steer there. What do you mean, you get a smack, you take out your machine gun, and you mow the guy down? What do you mean? What do you mean you cry out to Hashem, I got a smack, help me? That the smack is an opportunity to open up your hearts and feel it in a way that is not possible. So Palm always used to say that Loimid v'Shechayach is Moshe Rabbeinu was given the Torah under these circumstances, so that we who are in this pchina of Loimid v'Shechayach, we learn, we forget, you keep going, you keep on chucking. That's how the Torah was given to Moshe. The Sefer Hasidim says, not that this is an excuse not to understand things, but even if you don't understand it, if you try to learn it on this world, you will understand it li'asid lavai when Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes. But that's the Loimid v'Shechayach, and that's the 40 day, and that's the atak. Now the truth is that the whole Chet Egel was a panic of the moment. There are going to be atas in our life that we are, all of a sudden, after we have a relationship with Hashem, and all of a sudden, what? This is what happened? And we're in a void, and we're in a pachad. And suddenly the ata of Aleph, Tav, Hey, of you becomes ata. Now what? Where do I turn to? So the people panicked. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't come back, and you had all of Klal Yisrael panicking. And you had the stargazers that came running, because they were desperate to hang on to something. And the stargazers, as the Sefer Kuzri says, stargazers are like, imagine a guy breaks into a pharmacy. He has the keys, he gets in, but he starts giving out the medication. Say, you take this, you take that, you take this. This guy has a stomachache, and he's giving him a head medicine, and this guy has an ingrown toenail, and he's giving him heart medication, and everyone is dropping on the floor, because this is good medication. What's the problem? He says, the stargazers without a hashgacha and a munah leads to nowhere. So the people panicked. He said, how long was it? There's different shittas, but according to some, it was only an hour. Moshe Rabbeinu was only an hour late, and because of that, we suffer to this very day. That moment of panic to be able to sit back and say, we're going to wait this out. Right now, I only see Ata with an ayin. What do I do? But it's going to come back to the Ata with an aleph. So there's a story of one of the famous Talmidei Hagra. They were Meister Nefesh themselves to come to Yerushalayim. His wife had gone ahead of him, and he's on a boat, and they're 50 miles away from shore, and boom, the boat splits in half. And his father falls down, and he's trying desperately to swim with his son and his daughter. And he feels that he's exhausted, he can't do it, he's coming down. And then he becomes very realistic, and he says to himself, if I'm going to try to hold on to both kids, all three of us are going to drown. I have to let go of one. Wow. And no one wants to be in that situation. And the daughter cries out, leave go of me. Leave go of me. Take your brother, leave go of me. He's the son, he'll carry on the line of the house. And whatever the argument was, and the father in an unbelievable moment says she's right, and he feels they're all three going to drown, and he leaves go of the daughter, Leah. And as she's drowning, she says, Father, but wait, say Kriya Shema with me. And he's saying Kriya Shema with her, and he's trying still to hold on to both, and he's sinking, he's trying. Finally he says, Father, let go of me, now we'll all three drown. And he just, with this turmoil beyond any imagination, he lets go of her. And as she's bobbling down below the water, and the father's like, and she screams, Tata! The point she's drowning, he says, I don't care, we'll all three drown, he grabs her. And somehow he found those new koiches, and he manages to make it to the shore. And as he makes it to the shore, he walks, and he just collapses flat on his back. And they couldn't revive him. And the daughter is crying. She suddenly felt guilty. And when he finally wakes up and he opens his eyes, and the daughter is leaned over, and she says, Father, please, you can't do this. You saved my life. He says, I didn't save your life. When you called out Tata, there was no way in the world I could let go of you. And it said, Tzaddikim used to say, if we would only call out Tata with that koyach, there is no way Hashem could let go of us. But we have to be able to make that call. And that call is not easy. And the whole Parshas Kisisa is to give and to take. Shkolim is give and take. The Chet HaEgel was the loss of the moment. The Shviras Halicha has created a different kind of a Torah where we don't understand, a Torah where it's so difficult to learn, a Torah where you have to learn at the same time simultaneously, fight off bad machshavos and fight off discouragement and deal with Amunah. That was the Torah, but Moshe Rabbeinu was given the Torah under those circumstances. And we can't do it on our own. And you have to believe when you scream Tata that a Kadosh Baruch Hu sets in and things change. And that'd be interesting. I knew there was an organization, a yeshiva. They were looking for storage places to store their stuff. So they got, there's two kinds of tractor trailers. I'm sorry, here we go again. I know as much as tractor trailers I know about cameras, but there's one that's like one box, and there's one there's like a bottom, and they have like these, it looks like freight cars, and you connect them to the, anyone help me on this? Okay. You connect them to the top. So they had these like freight cars, and they connected them, and they kept the stuff there. Then the yeshiva was making a big Malava Malka or a dinner in the city, and they were upstate. So they had a great idea. They were going to bring in, the front part of the thing and drive it in. But they said, no, you can't do it because they're not registered to be part of a tractor trailer. They said, yeah, but the cab part has plates. Yeah, but this doesn't have plates that are registered. They said, you have to register it. It's a 6-week process. They said, but we need it for tomorrow. Too bad. So finally, they said, oh, no, the state police got involved. You better dare drive those trucks. You're going to be in trouble. We're going to haul it in. And so finally someone had an idea. You know what he did? He paid for 2 tow trucks to come. And the tow truck said, it's not a tractor trailer. It's not one hefza. This is a tow truck towing a crate. A tow truck could tow a crate. Doesn't need to be registered. And that's how they brought them in. There are times we kind of connect ourselves to our problems and we sink down with it. Scream Tata. Rabbi Hashem tows us in. Rabbi Hashem brings us to where we are. It's also the Indian of Parshas Paraduma, that even I know this is beyond us, but even death is not an end. It's the beginning of a next process, and we know that we can. I want to conclude with this story. Before Purim, went to visit someone, and he's not well, and his child is not well. Came in from Yerushalayim, he's not well, and he has a child that's not well. So we walk in there, and he's in the hospital. Okay, Baruch Hashem, they're both going to be okay, but they're going through difficult treatments. And I'm sitting next to him, we're schmoozing to the father. And he's like the greatest mood. He's such a tzaddik, full of betachon and emunah. No one should be tested. And a young intern walks in, or maybe an older doctor. I don't remember, but he was wearing a yarmulke. And I say to him, he starts asking, he takes the clipboard, he starts asking the father questions. And I say to him, I don't know why it came out, that, this man, this Yid, he has a son, like 20 blocks away in a different hospital in Manhattan that's undergoing treatments. And this doctor stops, puts the clipboard down, and he goes, "Why does God do this?" Everything came out. And it was like, And the father gets up, the one that's sick. And he walks over and he puts his arms around the doctor's shoulder. Calm down. He says, I'll tell you why. He says, my son, last week, when they came in and told him that the tests came back okay, this is the question that the kid asked. He said, Tata, Dei Chodesh Gayich Leben, this month I'm going to live? He said, yeah, this month you're going to live. And the kid said, Baruch Hashem. He says, the world stands on the schus of those that appreciate life. And sometimes this is what's needed to be able to appreciate life. That's what he answered the doctor. Part of the avoida, our avoida, is to learn how to appreciate life in such a way that this shouldn't be necessary. So, Tais, and have a wonderful Shabbos.